Welcome to the Alcohol Free Life podcast from The Sober Club. I'm Janie Grace, and this is for you if you've quit the booze or you'd like to, or maybe you're just sober curious. We'll bring you tips and motivation without any judgment, and there's inspiration from quit-lit authors, experts, and sober heroes. Hi and welcome. Hope you've had a good week. I've had a really busy week. As you know, it was our retreat last weekend at Inner Guidance, our Sobriety Rocks retreat. We had a fantastic time, just a small group of us, but it really was amazing actually, and kind of underpinned yet again what I already know, I suppose, that so much of what we talk about and focus on is not actually about stopping drinking. That's almost the easy bit. I mean, in inverted commas. Of course, it's not easy. It's really tough, but it really is the beginning. Everything else happens after you've ditched the booze. And on our retreat, we really were focusing on what's next. I mean, we had people who were just a few days into ditching the booze. They had been doing dry January, or they'd started halfway through dry January, through to someone who actually has always been teetotal, never really drinks, which just shows that actually they all had an amazing weekend, because what we were really focusing on is becoming your best self, you know, being the best you, looking at what's really going on underneath that kind of outer picture, that person who feels the need to numb stuff out with alcohol or whatever other behaviours are going on. And it was just really interesting. It was a great weekend. We did some wonderful meditations, and we had yoga, and we had a cacao ceremony, we had a gong bath, some great stuff, and we did lots of teaching sessions and stuff around getting the buzz without the booze, around personal development, around looking at what you really want, setting intentions, goal setting, and then really little things like, how do you actually, you know, what's your morning routine? What do you do what's your first thoughts when you wake up? Some of those little things are actually become really big. And I really do believe that once you ditch the booze or you start the process, then you kind of wake up in so many other ways. Well, it's obvious, isn't it? When you're not numbing everything out with alcohol, when you're not lowering your vibration, you're able to just open up and really start to find what kind of a person you are. Most people find they actually start to quite like themselves. It was great that we were able to help a few people, with the support of the group. A few people left just feeling totally inspired and renewed to kickstart new habits, new little routines, just small things that they fit into their life. And to that end, at the moment, we've just started the self-love challenge in the Sober Club. So it's worth joining now if you've been thinking about joining the Sober Club. It's an online membership. It's not very expensive at all. A few coffees a month. And you know, at the moment, you're going to get incredible value. It's always incredible value, though I say so myself. But our self-love challenge is wonderful, because we have some wonderful resources. Some meditations, guided meditations, only 7 minutes long, by the way, so anyone can cope with that. Some suggestions as to really simple ways you can start to introduce meditation, mindfulness, self-love into your life. And if you're still at the stage where you're thinking, I can't do that, it's not for me, I'm just not one of those people, then I'd really encourage you to actually open your mind to that, because you know that I have often said I couldn't possibly think about meditation or self-love, and that was because I wasn't being authentic to who I really am because of the booze. It's only now I can start to think about those things, and I'm still massively busy, and I still can't sit for 25 minutes morning and night. Despite recommendations, I can't do that. But what I can do is a 7-minute meditation and some journaling and some reflection. And, you know, I can fit that into my life, however busy I am. And I reckon so can you. So that's what we're offering as part of this self-love challenge. Some really fabulous resources. I'm so lucky and I'm so grateful to people like Joe DeRosa, who is an amazing meditation teacher, who has shared with us these meditations that if you're a member of the Sober Club, you get to download them, you can keep them, you can use them in the morning, you use them at night. I've also got other fabulous recordings that are done exclusively for us. Beverly Densham has done something with angels, which is really, really cool. I've got an interview with Dr. David Hamilton on kindness, and just a whole bunch of really lovely resources. So if that's something you're interested in, do check it out. Go to thesoberclub.com and join us and get these resources for our self-love challenge. Also, of course, one of our amazing bits of amazing recording that we have, a meditation, is courtesy of my podcast guest today, Rachael Welford. So again, she is someone who makes meditation simple. In fact, I think she has a course of that name, which I love. So Rachael is my podcast guest. We'll bring you that in a moment. I also just wanted to flag up that alcohol has been in the news a lot this week in the UK. I don't know if you've seen the various reports that say the number of alcohol-related hospital admissions has risen by 60%. That's over the last decade. Just reading from this news report here, it says at least 1.3 million people were admitted to hospital with a primary or secondary diagnosis linked to alcohol in 2018, according to a report from NHS Digital. And the figure represents 7.4% of all hospital admissions across the country. And then they look at this increase on previous years. It says campaigners called on the government to increase taxes on alcohol and provide more support for harmful drinkers. Nearly half of those admitted, 47%, were aged between 55 and 74, and just under 2/3 were male. And 2018, 5,698 people died due to drink. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? Because, of course, they're the ones that were severely ill, and we know that their illness was directly linked to alcohol. But I wonder how many more people died of other illnesses that we don't know, whether it was direct or indirect. Then they also talk about mental and behavioural disorders due to alcohol led to admissions, while alcohol also influenced admissions for cancer, injuries and heart disease. This is really sobering, to use a pun, because we're now seeing that the NHS now are facing up to the fact that alcohol is directly crippling the NHS. I mean, for admissions to jump 60% is ridiculous. And that really is only the tip of the iceberg, because the majority of people listening to this podcast will not be in that 60% yet. I wouldn't have been in that 60%. I was never, in inverted commas, quote marks, bad enough to be admitted to hospital for anything at all. And I'm guessing many of you aren't either. I was, and perhaps some of you are, a grey area drinker. You're somewhere on that spectrum. You're nowhere near at rock bottom so that you're needing to be admitted to hospital. However, you're still on that slippery slope, possibly. Who knows? I've been told off for being judgmental. I'm not allowed to be judgmental, and I didn't think I was being, genuinely. I'm really just trying to share what I've learned and what I've found to be true for me, which is that we have this perception that there are two types of drinkers. There are those at rock bottom, these people that we read about in these news reports, the 60% who end up in hospital due to injuries, illness, liver disease, heart failure, whatever, due to alcohol, those at rock bottom. And then we assume that there is everyone else who are completely okay with it, happy, totally fine, will never have a problem. But the reality is not like that. The reality is there is this spectrum of grey area drinkers, and many people are somewhere on that spectrum. And the really big question is, where are you on that spectrum, and where do you want to be? In a year's time, in 2 years' time, in 10 years' time, do you want to have moved down that booze elevator so that you become one of the 60%, or it will have risen by then, of people who end up in hospital? Or do you actually want to ask yourself the really important question, would my life be better physically and emotionally without any alcohol? because it's not a given that we have to take part in this, just because it's the social glue that sticks everything together, just because it's legal, just because everyone is doing it. We don't have to. We can actually be the disruptors who recognise that this is, on a hiding to nothing. And we can step off that elevator whenever we want to. Well, some of us still can. That's my challenge to you. If you still can, if you're still fine, then ask yourself that question. I mean, younger people are bright, aren't they? They're getting it. So many younger people are choosing not to drink, or certainly to drink mindfully, drink a lot less than those people in the kind of older age group who have had years of numbing out. Now, obviously, a disclaimer here, I must say, if you are alcohol dependent, then don't just stop drinking. It's really, really dangerous. Really important to stress that. If you are, clinically dependent, then you really must seek help. Don't just stop drinking. Look at Alcohol Change UK. They're a great charity who have lots of information, and obviously, go and get the help that you need. But if you are a grey area drinker, if you know that you can stop and have stopped for a while, but still this thing has a hold on you, then you're in a different space, and you really are lucky, really lucky that you can choose, and you really can choose. I didn't think I could. I felt it. I was stuck in a trap, and it's only when I was able to see the way out and see how much better life could be on the other side, that I was able to move on. And then, of course, for those people who are in that really annoying, irritating, often quite difficult early phase, perhaps you've done dry January and you're carrying on, and if so, massive high five to you, well done. It can be tough in those first kind of, 100 days can be really tough, and more for some people. If you've been drinking for years and years and years, my goodness, there's a lot of recalibrating to do, and you're probably all over the shop. So just remember there are things you can do to help yourself. There really are. Eating really well makes a big difference. Help to balance your brain chemistry that's likely to be all over the place by really good food, just decent, eat properly, real food and protein at every meal. Just little obvious things like that will help balance the serotonin, the dopamine, the GABA. You'll be amazed how many people I speak to who say, I'm ditching the booze, but I'm also on a diet, or I'm fasting 3 days a week. No, it's not the time to do it. It really isn't. Make the stopping drinking the non-negotiable bit, because after that you'll be so much more resilient to deal with other behaviour changes that feel important to you. And you may or may not feel ready to step into meditation and mindfulness and all of these things that I'm banging on about all the time. But you might be okay to be curious. I'm coining this hashtag self-love curious. We know about sober curious, but what about being self-love curious? That gives you the permission to not necessarily have to storm in there and say, I now love myself, because most of us then go, no, I don't. Most of us can't do Louise Hay's magical looking in the mirror thing and say, I love you, you're beautiful. Immediately next thought is, no, you're not. And that's strong, and that's within us. But we can be curious. We can be self-love, self-acceptance curious, and meditation curious. Because if there are so many different ways of putting this stuff into our lives, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about with my next guest. So I'll shut up and I'll let you listen to the recording that was made earlier with Rachael Welford from Welford Wellbeing.
Rachael Welford is the founder of Welford Wellbeing, and she's on a mission to empower people to take control of their mental, emotional and spiritual health so they can live fuller and happier lives. I love this question that you pose, Rachael. What if everything we knew about mental health was wrong? Oh, we're definitely going to talk about that. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So yeah, we were going to talk about your work and the various workshops and the things that you do and the coaching and all of that, and definitely about that particular question. But let's just start with your sort of journey then. What's happened for you in the past to bring you to kind of where you are now?
Wow. Well, it's been quite a journey, I guess. I guess the most poignant point of the journey was about 5 years or so ago. I had a complete breakdown. and was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. I was having panic attacks all the time, and I was just really, really, really unwell, and I was bedridden with it, and it was just not really a very good time in my life. But it's also been one of the biggest blessings that I've had in my life as well, which it seemed, at the time, if somebody had said that to me, I probably would have, wanted to punch them in the face or something like that. But with hindsight, it's just taught me so many things. And from my own healing journey, I started to, I went down the very conventional route that most people would go down, which is, visiting my doctor and going on various different types of medication. And it worked to a point, don't get me wrong. And I'm not anti-medication. I'm not anti-Western medicine. I think Western medicine works very, very well if there's something mechanically wrong with you. We're very good at, if you've got a heart attack or if you need surgery or a hip replacement, that kind of thing. It's very much as if you're like the Western medicine is almost like mechanics of the physical body. But when it comes to kind of mental and emotional, spiritual doesn't even come into it.
Yeah.
Nothing's answered. And I just got better to a point, but I wasn't getting any better past that point. And I wondered if there were other options, other things that I could maybe do to benefit myself and to help me to feel better. And I came across a variety of weird and wonderful, what most people would probably call quite woo-woo, practices. And I thought I'll give it a go because I didn't really have anything to lose at that point. And so I started using meditation was one of the primary practices. I also started using affirmations. I did a lot of reading around, people like Louise Hay. And then through that work, I discovered this incredible technique called EFT, which I'm now a practitioner of. And it just changed my life. And I realized that there was so much more that I had control over.
So much we can do for ourselves. Yeah,
exactly. And that's not to say, even if this is the thing that I always say to people, even if you go down the complete conventional route and you want to take medication, it works for you and all that kind of stuff, brilliant. But why not on top of that?
Yeah, add on
other things that are going to make you feel amazing. And then through that kind of work, I was sober for about 18, maybe even 20 months or so, because I'd read that, alcohol was a depressant. And so I just thought it's crazy to try and recover from depression and drink something that's a known depressant. Yeah. It doesn't even make sense. And so, I didn't drink for quite a long period of time with the view in my head that I would get back to normal, in inverted commas, which would be, going out and sort of socializing and drinking with friends and partying at the weekend. And what I found was when I went back to that kind of behavior, it just didn't really suit me anymore. And it brought up a lot of anxiety. It brought up a lot of feelings of depression again. And I started to wonder, like, maybe there's links there as well. And so I've massively overhauled my relationship with alcohol through that journey as well.
Yeah, just let's just talk about a bit more about that for a moment, because it's something that I touch on a lot. Is this link between anxiety and depression and drinking? I mean, with everything now, and with the training that you've done and the work that you're doing, what is your view around that? I mean, of course, we can't say stop drinking and all your mental health issues will disappear. It's not as simple as that, but I have met people who've come off antidepressants. I've met, certainly in my own case, my anxiety that I didn't even know I had lessened. I mean, went away, really. I was absolutely shocked at the difference it made. So without doubt, there are links. How would you sum up that relationship?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very difficult because obviously it's anecdotal, isn't it?
Yeah, so exactly.
Everybody's going to have a different experience and you can only talk from your own experience. But from my experience, I mean, it's a direct correlation. I can't even deny it. And what I was shocked about as well, the same as you, I stopped drinking because of depression. And for full disclosure, I guess I count myself as living a sober life, but very occasionally I might have a New Year's Eve or where I decide that I want to drink.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky in one way that I can do that because I'm not drinking because of addiction.
You have an off switch. You have an off switch, as it were.
And I think that's a very different conversation, as well, that also needs to be had, is that that's okay for me to do that because I essentially don't drink because it exasperates my mental health issues rather than, that could be very dangerous for somebody if they're dealing with addiction. But what I found is it didn't seem to matter how the volume of what I drank, the type of alcohol that I drank, or how often I did it, the outcome would always be the same. And the outcome would always be flare-ups of anxiety, flare-ups of what I only can describe as self-hatred. And, this basically, I get this very negative voice in my head, which I'm sure we all have, our inner critic, etc.
Yeah.
When I don't drink, it's barely legible. I just don't hear it. I hear the voice that says, come on, babe, you've got this. You're amazing. Life's brilliant. All that good stuff. And when I even have, what it was coming down to, because I spent about, I don't know, a couple of years, I guess, doing trial and error because I wanted to get back to normal. And this is another thing that I think we need to question. Why is normal drinking?
Yeah, absolutely. Why is it the norm?
It's like, and that was all I was really focused on, was almost, it almost felt like to me sometimes that if I could get back to like my old life and my old behaviours, which actually some of which were probably quite damaging, that would mean that I was better, that I was well. But it was actually, now what I'm looking at is probably those behaviours that, to some extent exasperated what was already there.
Of course.
So I think definitely, and the anxiety was a real eye-opener for me because I didn't think that was linked to alcohol. I would have thought that might be linked to, I don't know, sugar and caffeine, things that kind of that you associate with giving you a kind of high, if that makes sense. But not alcohol, because I thought alcohol was more like a dampener, if that makes sense.
Well, it's both, isn't it? This is what's so ridiculous about this drug. We've all brainwashed ourselves into thinking it's an upper and it's a downer. You have it when you're sad, you have it when you're happy. It makes you relaxed and chilled, and it makes you confident and buoyant. I mean, it's all just nonsense. It's all just in your head, really.
Yeah, and this is the thing, the stories. That was the one thing I remember massively about when I first stopped drinking, was how many stories
you tell yourself.
Well, and just created around the whole thing. Like I just started seeing the world differently, and I was like, whoa, hang on a second. I started noticing all these adverts and all these things that I'd never noticed before, that are basically saying, unless you have an alcoholic drink in your hand, you're not confident, you're not cool, you're not rock and roll, you're not, you're not going to be able to be sexually desirable.
I mean, I tried to buy a birthday card for my son last week, who was 20. And oh my God, I actually stood there and counted about 37 cards before I found one that was half decent for a 20-year-old guy and didn't have drink on it. Isn't that ridiculous? Utterly ridiculous.
And I really started noticing the whole thing around, gin o'clock and
I know,
things that,
it's
to be
exhausting,
honest,
isn't it?
Historically I was massively a part of. I was a total live for the weekend kind of girl, and I used to say ridiculous things like, I don't trust people that don't drink. And,
I know
I love Christmas.
I know, me too.
I love Christmas because you can drink at 10 a.m. and no one's going to judge you.
And holidays, airports, special time zones exist at airports. It's 7 a.m. must be time for a Sauvignon.
It's always 5 p.m. somewhere, and you
I tell you what, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, I've said this so many times on the podcast, but this thing has managed to delude the brightest of us. Really, really bright people who have fallen under this goddamn spell, and so many still under it. It's quite incredible. I must just pick up on something you said. It was really interesting because, you said that it's anecdotal, this link, between anxiety and depression and alcohol. Well, actually, how ridiculous is that? When you really think about it, how ridiculous that it is anecdotal. Why aren't there proper studies done? Why is it that, again, this is something I bang on about all the time, but why is it that when you go to your GP and you're brave enough to say, oh, actually, I think I might be drinking a bit too much, the answer is usually, well, you look fine. Just, have an alcohol-free day, yeah? What the hell? Why aren't there? We know that alcohol kills a ridiculous number of people. We know that it impacts on 200 different illnesses and 7 types of cancer, and we know all of this. So why haven't there been real concrete, definitive studies done? It's quite bizarre, actually.
Yeah, I think there are some studies now. Like I've seen and read some studies on those subjects, but to be honest, they're few and far between.
Yeah.
And I think, for want of not to want to come off sounding like a conspiracy nut, there's a lot of money involved.
There's a lot of money involved. Absolutely.
And I think that actually what we're seeing now with the rise of the non-alcoholic drinks market, a lot of these bigger brands are getting involved in that, and not to kind of like give them a free plug, but there's a particular quite famous gin brand that does a premix gin and tonic, which actually when I had that I was like, oh, this is a game changer for me, because even though I don't want to drink anymore because I don't like the effects it has on my mental health, I don't want to drink Coke.
No, absolutely.
When I go out, I want to feel like I get to have an adult drink and stuff like that. So I'm excited about the fact that some of these brands are coming on board, and maybe
that might change it a little bit.
Well, I'm hoping that when they're established,
well, you're right.
So
you're
they're
right.
not scared to lose their money.
No, you're right. I mean, brands like Heineken Zero. You're absolutely right. Heineken Zero are really big players, and as you know, they were featured in the ad with God, my brain's gone today. The ad with Daniel Craig, the 007 ad. So that kind of suddenly makes alcohol free cool. And a friend of mine was coming through Amsterdam airport, and there was a massive Heineken Zero kind of stand giving out free. I mean, that's fantastic. That's putting it on the map. Just a word of warning about some of the premixed drinks, though, because some of them contain aspartame and you have to be a bit careful with that. But anyways, so I think you're right. It's a really interesting point. But I mean, just maybe it's a conversation for another time. But I do think there's so much work to be done in this area. I was reading the Professor David Nutt's book. I don't know if you've read it yet. It's such a good book. A good book. I mean, there's quite a bit in it. I'm hoping to interview him, and there's quite a bit in it that I'm gonna have to kind of have a conversation with him about, because he still keeps looking at these studies as to why alcohol might be good for you, and it's quite bizarre, actually. It's all this kind of, well, alcohol is proven to be responsible for this and this, and an increase in this and an increase in this. Oh, but it might provide a slight decrease in kidney issues. It's like, what? Don't be ridiculous. Just don't be silly.
I quite like that angle, though, because I think, I like the fact that he's looking at it from all angles.
No, the scientific approach is fantastic. It is.
His work for that, and I actually met him.
Did you?
Yeah, at an event, and he's really an incredible man. And
great. What I was going to say was in that book, I don't know if you've read it yet, but there is a whole section on. I mean, what I love is he's clearly right at the forefront, and he's actually working with real life people as well as being a scientist. And I can't remember the exact anecdote, but there was one study, one experience he mentions in there, where he was working in a hospital with a patient who was suffering all kinds of issues, of brain problems, of dementia, early dementia, all kinds of stuff, and they were trying different drugs, and they were doing all of this stuff, and then eventually a junior doctor said, "Oh, well, has anyone taken a drinking history?" And no one. And it turned out that this guy was drinking way over the limits that would be seen to be recommended every single night. So they worked with him to reduce his drinking, and so many of his symptoms became better. Such a simple thing. And I love the fact that he flags that up. But, on the one hand, fantastic that it happened. But on the other hand, why would it not be done first?
Yeah. I think
anyways.
a lot of stuff around that, a lot of that I'm starting to realize with a lot of the work that I do is, similarly, when people have various different ailments, diseases, illnesses, whatever you want to call it, no one's looking at.
No one asks about the drinking
As one, and emotional well-being as another. And it's like, actually, when people are exhibiting addictive behaviors, whether their coping mechanism that they choose is alcohol or recreational drugs or shopping or sex or porn or whatever their addiction is, and there's many, gambling, all kinds of different things that you might be addicted to, the core element underneath all of that stuff is, why are you doing that? Human beings, we don't do things by accident. Do you know what I mean? No one wakes up and thinks, oh, you know what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I want to be an astronaut. What do you want to be? I want to be an alcoholic or a heroin addict. Like, nobody dreams about that as what they want. It's just whatever that thing is, whether it's alcohol or another addictive substance or behavior, it solves a problem.
Exactly. It's numbing something out, isn't it? Or providing something.
Completely. And if you look at most people that have, some sort of alcohol addiction or any kind of addiction, it's underlying unresolved emotional
there's always
problems.
Trauma. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
If you sort out the trauma and you sort out the emotional problems, that you don't need that solution anymore.
Yeah.
And I really found that in my own journey, was like, oh, actually, I didn't realise I was doing this at the time. I just thought I was really fun party girl.
Yeah.
And I was really fun party girl. But actually, once I started working on my trauma and my emotional problems, when I drank, it didn't have the same effect. I didn't escape myself because I didn't need to. Because I really liked myself. So I didn't need to go and hide and pretend I was somebody else or bury my emotions underneath alcohol, because actually I liked myself and I dealt with the emotions that were there. So I think there's a lot of conversations that aren't being had in that sphere. And I think that's why things like, the community that you're building and all the beautiful sober communities that I see across Instagram, as well as the more traditional roots of, AA, etc. It's that connection with other people that understand what you're going through, and that sharing of, this is how I feel, and doing your steps or whatever your whatever that might be for you, is just being able to have human connection with someone who says, I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Rather than just, oh, you're feeling really miserable, you're feeling really down, you're not able to cope, here's a pill.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the answer, is it?
It's the equivalent of just putting a plaster. This is what I always say. It's, and I feel the same about, sort of mental health medication a lot of the time, is it can be part of the solution, but it's the equivalent of putting a plaster on top of a cut. And, 3 months down the line, the cut is still open and you just keep putting a plaster on it, and no one's going, well, maybe you need stitches, or maybe that needs a bit of antiseptic on it, or maybe you're just going, oh, well, just keep putting a plaster on it and hope that it gets better. It's like, it's not gonna,
Totally. So what is the answer to the question then? What if everything you thought you knew about mental health was wrong? I mean, what is the truth? And this is a big one. What is it that you want people to know then about mental health? Where are our perceptions wrong, most of us?
Wow. I mean, I wish I knew the answer, because I'd be very rich probably, and B, no one would be suffering anymore, which is way more important to me, is that, I guess that question, it just keeps me focused on exploring and curiosity. I don't know the answer. I don't, and a lot of what I talk about is anecdotal, again, from my own experience. But what I find is then when I'm in therapy with people that come to me with their issues, they experience a lot of the same things that I experienced. And, when they then speak about their friends that have maybe experienced, there's a lot of similarities. And so although there's no, I haven't done any solid research in that sense, it's like there's a lot of similarities. And generally it comes down to a lack of self-love and self-care. Yeah. And I think, again, with myself, I used to smoke, I used to drink, and although I don't think, looking back, potentially there were times where my drinking might have been problematic, but it never got in the way of work or this, that and the other. I was always, functioning. I just think that actually partly I was having a dig at myself. I didn't like myself. So it was quite, to smoke and drink and kind of do behaviours that cause damage to my body didn't bother me because I didn't.
Well,
like
you were kind of
myself
self-sabotaging in a way.
Exactly.
Which is exactly what I was doing too, actually.
And so when you start to love yourself more and you actually like yourself, you think, oh, actually, I don't want to eat all that food.
It's so true.
Not very good for
so
me. I
true.
don't want to drink things that make me feel sick. I don't want to smoke things that make me cough or that I know could cause me to have cancer, because I love myself and I want to live and I want to be healthy. So I think that's a really big part of it. And I think that the second thing is that actually we're not taught how to process and deal with our emotions.
No,
we're not
absolutely.
taught how to sit with uncomfortable emotions, and a lot of that starts from when we're very, very young. And from what I'm about to say, if any parents are listening, please take this in the loving and kind way that's intended, because it's not about blame at all. It's very difficult being a parent. There's no handbook. You're exhausted, you know. So it's not. Yeah, I just wanted to have that kind of preface before I say this. But you know, a lot of the time when we're toddlers and we're having tantrums, we're just told to go to our room until we can learn how to behave, or we're sat onto a naughty step, or we're spanked or whatever. And no one sits with us. And although I completely understand that you can't really communicate with a 2-year-old that's in a full-blown tantrum, but once they've calmed down, sitting with them and saying, sweetie, what happened there? What was going on in your body? Why did you react like that? I was angry, mummy. Okay, what were you angry about? Okay, well, you know that it's okay to be angry, and you know, and to actually have that conversation and to say, you're going to be loved even if you're angry. You're going to be loved
because it's fear, actually, isn't it? Ultimately, it's fear,
and that is
coming
what
out.
It is. And it's like
so true.
And I think that's what happens a lot of the time. Is I think young children, their anxiety is misinterpreted as bad behaviour.
Yeah, totally.
And so when they're anxious, which is when they're, you know, most fearful and most probably just need a cuddle, is when they're told off and shouted at, which obviously exasperates the anxiety. And I think then what happens is in adult life, we're not able to express ourselves properly. We don't like to put our boundaries down because we're scared that we're going to get in trouble, or people aren't going to like us, and all this kind of stuff. And
it's so true. And in addition, you know, of course, we've all got the layers of being, you know, told we're not good enough, you know, whether that's a teacher saying, you know, don't you ever try and speak in public or sing, you have a terrible voice, or you're crap at maths, or whatever it is, you know, all that stuff laden on. We take it all in. We never, you know, evaluate it and go, well, is that actually true? You know, we just take it all in, and it builds up, you know, and we've all got that to a greater or lesser extent. Some actual verbal abuse, of course, but God, it's so true. One of the best things anyone ever taught me was this fabulous author and parenting expert, I suppose you'd call her, taught me when my kids were really young. My first two were really young. She said, you know, when they get into a rage, when they're having a tantrum kind of thing, get them to play angry lions and pretend they're lions that are roaring, and go and bash cushions. She said, buy a load of cushions for the purpose. And so they were allowed to actually get the anger out. I used to do it with them. It was great fun, and it was one of the best things. Just such a simple little tip, but it's fantastic because, you know, you actually accept I'm really pissed off. It's quite a good thing for adults to do.
I totally agree. I was about to say, I've actually had it with a client, and you know, we were in a session and all this anger started coming up, and I said, do you recognise what that is? No. And it took her I could clearly see what it was, but it's obviously easier when you're you know, and eventually this kind of, she said, I think I don't know if I'm allowed to swear.
No, you can swear, don't worry.
I'm really fucking pissed off. And I said, okay, well, what do you want to do with that? And she's like, oh, I don't know. And you could see she was, you know, wanting to move her body. And I said, look, you know, you can, luckily where I do therapy, there's no one nearby. So it's kind of a standalone room, and there's a bar underneath, but it's not open on a Monday. So it's literally, you know, you could do whatever you want and no one's going to hear you. And I just said to her, look, no one's about. This is your space. You know, get some cushion. We put the cushions on the chair, and she just went for it. And she was screaming and punching and swearing. And I said, if you want to move around, and she was like, just sort of, you know, going around like that. And after about 3 minutes, you know, she's sort of sweating a little bit and a bit exhausted, and we just started laughing. And she went, oh, God, that felt really good.
Be able to release it. So true. So
and
true.
I think there's no space for that. You know, as soon as somebody shows that they're angry or whatever. There's no space for that to be held. And I think this is why it's really important when I talk about kind of spiritual health as well, is that actually sometimes, we'll do things like women's circles, or when I do the gong bars or cacao ceremonies, this kind of thing is a space for people to come together and for emotion to be able to be experienced. And
yeah, definitely.
Even recently, just the last cacao ceremony that I did last week, one of the ladies, when we were doing the chanting, bless her, she just started laughing and she just started giggling, and she couldn't stop giggling. And then obviously it was a bit like a chain reaction. And so, sort of 3 or 4 people really got the giggles and they couldn't stop laughing. And I just carried on chanting because I just thought, I'm just, going to hold the space, and that's cool. And when we brought the chanting to the end, and she would, bless her, she was really embarrassed. She went, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I said, "Please don't apologize." And she's like, "Oh, but I feel like I ruined it." I was like, "You didn't ruin anything. Like, that was your experience, and that was the emotion that was coming up for you in that moment. And actually, it's beautiful that you were just able to express that emotion, and everyone can hold their own space. It's not up to us to control you and make you conform to this space. There's space for all emotions here. And you might find that as we go into the gong, you might feel sad now, because sometimes laughter is actually covering, often human beings, we use laughter as a coping mechanism. So we'll make a joke about ourselves before somebody else can, because actually it's less hurtful if we make that joke about ourselves. Maybe I used to do it all the time, like make jokes about me being overweight or whatever.
Yeah, me too. I just put myself down all the time.
And that means then if someone else did it, it's not as bad because I've already put it out there, and that gives me the control over it. So, but I just thought, and then you could see everybody relax, because they realise that, oh, okay, it's not, you haven't been naughty, you're not in trouble. You just had a reaction and something that needed to come up in your body, and it is quite, not necessarily funny, but people get nervous in those kind of environments if they're not used to it. If you've never chanted before, it can seem a bit comical or a bit silly, or you might feel silly because we're not taught to vocalize anything in Western culture either. So it can feel a bit uncomfortable to maybe chant in a room full of people. And so, I just think the more that we can learn to process our emotions as they come up, and to just feel what is, and to realize that they're not good or bad. Emotions are just the messengers of the body. They're just telling us, they're giving us information. Anxiety is just telling us something doesn't feel right. Maybe there's something to be afraid of. Anger's usually telling us your boundary has been crossed. Sadness is telling us that thing, whatever that is grief, for example. It's a very deep, overwhelming emotion, but it's very necessary. And I think,
I was just going to say, where do you think meditation fits into all of this? Because often when people do ditch the booze, they find that they feel more open to trying meditation, or they feel more able to give it a try. I mean, I was one of those people that for many years talked about it, interviewed everyone and wrote about it and etc. But didn't actually do it, because if I did try to do it, I was literally that kind of queen of the shopping list, the shopping list coming in and then getting exhausted with myself, and then beat myself up for being so hopeless and so literally queen of just giving up. I now see it very differently. But just tell us, because I know for you like to make the whole idea of meditation simple so that it is doable for everyone. So where do you think that fits in with people who are sort of right at the beginning of that journey, and maybe they've ditched the booze, or they're thinking of that, and they think, okay, I wonder whether I could make space for that now?
I think there's a number of things. I think, firstly, you seem to get a lot of time back when you give up drinking.
Definitely, which is brilliant, isn't it? It's brilliant. And you can wake up earlier. Who knew there were 2 6 o'clocks in one day?
So I think that helps, because you have a bit more time, so you might want to allocate that time to something that's a bit more beneficial. I think, secondly, a lot of the time when people are giving up drinking, they start to just generally become a bit more self-aware. And obviously meditation is a great practice for building even more self-awareness.
Yeah, definitely.
And thirdly, I think that, if you're giving up drinking generally, you're either on a self-development path, or potentially there's been a trauma or something, or it's got to the point where, you're at the end of, in the depths of addiction, or something's got to change. You're kind of, generally people are at that point where something needs to change, and so they're probably more willing to try something that's out of their comfort zone that they wouldn't have necessarily tried before.
And do you think it's really a really helpful tool, even for those kind of at the beginning of their, journey into anything, woo as we might call it, is meditation a good place to start?
I think meditation is just one of the most incredible things that I've ever experienced, and I would just urge anyone to try it. And the most common thing that I hear, because I teach meditation, in corporate, I also have my own courses that I run, and I host classes and various different things. And the most common thing that I hear is a lot of people say things like, I tried it and it didn't work for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I tried to do it and I couldn't do it. Or
and I can't give up 20 minutes. It's, I fidget, it's too long.
Don't have the time, all that kind of stuff. And I think one of the reasons that I wrote the course that I wrote is because I found that through my own journey of learning meditation, and I'd, gone down various different routes, from just doing guided meditations on YouTube is kind of where I started out, and then trying to practice doing things on my own. And then I did a Vipassana, which is like a 10-day silent meditation retreat where no eye contact, no speaking, no anything.
Oh my goodness.
10 days, and you meditate for about 10 hours a day for 10 days.
Gosh.
Very intense.
That sounds hard.
So, I've kind of, but you think like I've kind of done the plethora of like practicing at home or practicing with teachers and practicing in, in Buddhist centers or different places. And what I found was the way that it was taught, no one actually showed people what happens inside. So what I would find is somebody would say, it's a bit like kind of copy when you want to learn something new. It's like, say if you wanted to learn how to bake a cake, somebody would say, right, here's you need to get your ingredients, then you need to get your bowls or tins or whatever, and then you prepare everything and you weigh the things out and you mix it all together and then you cook it. And ideally you want to be able to see through the oven door so that you can see when the cake's rising. And I feel like with meditation they go, here's the stuff that you need, and then they go,
and you need to create a beautiful cake, and
here's the cake, and you go, wow.
But no one actually says what happens if it goes soggy in the middle. No. It's a good analogy.
And or what happens in the oven. And so what I try and do is I'll sit there and I'll describe what's going on and I'll sit with my eyes closed and my hands in whatever mudra I might be using, and then as I focus on my breath, I'll tell people what's happening in my brain and what I'm doing. And then they can see, all the times they thought they failed, they were doing it right, but nobody told them that that's part of the practice. And I feel like it's the equivalent of someone trying to learn how to run, and you go to run club and they go, today we're going to run a marathon, and you go, but I've never ran before. And they go, well, marathon or nothing. And you go, I'm not sure I could do 24 miles. And they go, well, don't bother then. And I feel like that's very much the same with meditation. It's not a quick fix. And
absolutely,
it's a journey and it's a practice. And the more you practice, the easier it gets. But also, it can be a frustrating practice. Similarly, with running a marathon, you might get to 3 or 5k really quickly, and you think, oh my God, I'm going to be amazing at this. But then you get stuck at 13 miles or something, and you just can't seem to break that half marathon, amount. And I feel like with meditation, because you're sat in silence, you feel like you should just be able to do it. Like, how hard is it to just sit, right? And that's what I always say is meditation is simple. It's not easy. The practice is simple. Focus on your breath. Yeah, amazing.
So tell us about the courses that you offer then, and where people can come to a workshop or a course with you.
So currently I run courses in London in person, and there's a 4-week course and also a weekend course, which is going to be the first time I've run it over a weekend. So I'm quite excited, because I find in London a lot of people find it difficult to dedicate, 4 weeks in a row at a specific time because, you know, they're busy people. So I thought maybe I can condense the teaching into a weekend, and then people can still get that teaching, and it's supported with like an online portal. So there's video lessons within that. So you can just revisit the lessons, and I have a Facebook group for support so people can ask and comment and stuff like that. So there's, you know, it's ongoing. The course is really broken down into what we call the 4 levels of meditation, and that is the body, the emotions, the mind, and spiritual. So when you start to understand these 4 levels or 4 layers, you start to realize where you're at on your journey. And a lot of people, when they realize that, go, oh my God, I'm further ahead than I realized. Because if you're at the busy mind stage, you're on level 3. So you're actually almost on level 4. And that's what I find is a lot of people, you know, they get kind of halted at level 3, which you're like, no, you're like so close to being there, but they just don't know. So I've found that it's been really, really incredible. Like some, you know, people that have come and learnt with me who said, I'll never be able to meditate, and they were so adamant, and they were almost doing the course to kind of like prove to themselves that they wouldn't be able to do it. And now they've got really beautiful practices where they practice for 10 minutes a day by themselves at home, and that's really what I want to try and create. So I teach various different tools for the different levels. So depending where you're at on that day, you can just pick and choose a tool. So it's not just like one method of meditation. One lady who came on the course, I loved it. She goes, oh, I love it because it's like a meditation mashup. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of what it is.
Amazing.
You know? So
that's great.
A bit like a pick and mix.
Where lovely. So there's lots of different tools in your toolkit.
Yeah, exactly that. And then you can just pick and choose depending where you're at that day.
How you feel. Love it. And just remind us of your website then, Rachel.
So my website is Welford, WELFORD, wellbeing.com. And on there you'll be able to find all the information about my one-to-one sessions, corporate wellbeing, the courses that I run, and also our retreats as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for the work you're doing. It's really inspirational and I love it. Anything that makes meditation simple is great by me. So thank you. You're doing amazing work. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being such a great guest. Thanks you.
Thanks for having me. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Rachael. Don't forget that Rachael has given us access to a really great, very short meditation. It's only about 10 minutes long. So if you are a member of the Sober Club, you're going to get access to that and about 3 or 4 other fantastic meditations, guided visualizations, as well as a whole host of other resources in our self-love challenge that we have going on at the moment. It's well worth joining just for that. You can always leave after a month if you want to, but we do have a ton of resources. We have our online course, Get the Buzz Without the Booze, which runs over a 90-day period. We have obviously masses on nutrition, including several interviews with leading nutritionists, naturopaths. We have some stuff on fitness. We have relationships expert. And we have Claire Pooley doing a session for us within the self-love challenge. Claire Pooley, author of the Sober Diaries, is going to do a live session with us about writing creatively and just the importance of journaling. I've said it many times, but certainly if you're in the early stages of sobriety, just get a pen and a notebook. It makes such a difference just to get your thoughts out. So she's going to be talking to us about the importance of writing and giving us some tips for creative writing. Not because you necessarily want to become a blogger or a published author, just because this is a great thing for everyone to do. We also have a session with our relationships expert, Haya Kletchman, and we'll do that just after Valentine's Day. So there's loads of amazing stuff to look forward to. So check it out if you're not already a member. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. Everything is in the member portal online. And then we have a Facebook group, which you can use if you want to. You don't have to, but it's a very supportive group, but you don't have to. I do get emails from people saying, Actually, I'm not a Facebook user, so is it still worth me joining? Yes, absolutely. Masses of stuff is just there in our membership portal. What else can I tell you about? Our next Champneys retreat is the 13th and 14th of June. That's at Champneys in Tring. It's just a one-night wellness break. Get the buzz without the booze. It would be amazing to see you there. Actually, no, we've called it Self-Care and Sobriety, haven't we? Amazing to see you there. I'll make sure that link goes up as soon as possible. So let me know about that. And our next retreat at Inner Guidance is now not in May. We've changed the date of that, and I'll bring you the new date as soon as possible. But if you're interested in our retreat at Inner Guidance, please register your interest on that. It's in Suffolk, and that's the one where we do all our amazing extra stuff, our gong bath, our cacao ceremony, and lots of meditation and amazing gourmet vegan food. So there's lots coming up. I'm also planning a workshop in London. It will probably be in London on July the 10th or the 11th, whatever the Saturday is. I haven't got a diary in front of me. So pop that in your diary and register your interest again if you might be interested. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter at Janie Lee Grace. Actually, on Facebook, most of my stuff is at Janie Lee Grace Loves. And don't forget all that various bits and bobs are at the Sober Club. There's always blogs there. You can listen to the podcasts there. And of course, we have competitions as well. We often have great alcohol-free drinks to give away. So have a fantastic week. I've got some really great guests lined up for you in the coming weeks. So have a great week and give yourself a really big hug. And if you are doing our self-love challenge or one of your own, then we have this little phrase you have to repeat after me: I am enough, because you really are. See you soon. Thank you for listening to the Alcohol Free Life podcast. I'm Janie Lee Grace. Please go to thesoberclub.com, listen to more podcasts, read our blogs, enter our competitions, grab yourself a free PDF, Self-Care in Sobriety, and check out our online community